Hi, everybody. Welcome to the WVHuddle.com Prep Football Podcast, the semifinal edition. This is, I think, my favorite one to do every year. It's kind of the tradition, weekend after Thanksgiving, all these big games, big teams. Lots to get to, so we'll jump right in. Class AAA semifinals, of course, are set. One side of the bracket, you got a rematch between Cabell Midland and the defending champion Capital. The other side, don't necessarily want to call both teams upstarts. Wheeling Park's a team. They've been around. They've kind of been building this, but so is Point Pleasant, and they've not really been off the radar, but people haven't, for better or worse, haven't really taken them seriously really until last Friday when they just thumped Huntington. But we'll start with Capital and Cabell Midland. It's a rematch of a game that I was at earlier this season, and it was a great game. And I think I was telling you or somebody earlier this week that the last two Cabell Midland games have been two of my favorite games over the last 5 years. That game last year down in Ona during the regular season, just back and forth. It was a shootout, high scoring.
Yeah.
Capital ends up getting the win late. I think it was a big Kayshawn Haley game. Kind of the one where he really established himself maybe as the Kennedy favorite last year, I thought. But, no Kayshawn Haley this year. Capital kind of sputtered out. Their offense hit some hiccups in the second half against Cabell Midland the first time, and that was really Cabell Midland's coming out party. Capital was number one in the state at the time. Midland kind of took it from them then, and they've been the dominant force really at the top of AAA with, maybe the exception of Point Pleasant also. But, a lot of people have been asking, what do you guys think of what's going to happen in the semis? And it's hard to tell with these two teams. These are two very, very, very good football teams.
Yeah.
They're all four are really good football teams. But as it pertains to this game, I don't know. I would tend to lean towards Cabell Midland just with the way they've been playing and the personnel they have and having the home game. But this is a Capital team that's got a lot of kids back from that championship run last year. They've been to this point before. It's nothing new for Capital, really.
No. Just conveniently, this is the two teams that Ryan and I saw last week.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Midland, he saw Capital. I saw Midland. I think I've seen Midland more this year than I've seen Capital, as a matter of fact. And compared to what I've seen from Midland, they were sloppy against Brook. They turned the ball over 3 or 4 times.
Did the poor conditions have anything to do with that?
I don't really think
it was
that
pretty
it
nasty
did.
out though.
It was raining and cold, but what happened was Devin Stapleton lost a couple fumbles, and they were strips.
Okay.
That's not bad weather.
Gotcha.
That's people playing you tough, and Midland gets the win. And look, that was a 37 final. That was 9-7 heading into the fourth quarter. Don't even try to tell me that they blew them out. They didn't. Okay. What happened was, as Midland with its 2-platoon system is geared to do, it wore Brook down by the fourth quarter, and they started pulling away. I think this is a very tough matchup for Capital because of Midland's strength up front, and it's I think Midland has more offensive options for what it does this year than Capital might have. What are you thinking about Capital coming into this week?
They're actually two teams I've seen over the last 2 weeks, so I've got a chance to see them both pretty recently. I think you were at the Capital game too.
Yes, I was. I was at the Capital game last week.
Nazario got hurt early in that game, and it was really it became a game where Tyree Pratt had to take over, and he did just that. Had a huge game against a Martinsburg team, which, by the way, I want to say grew up a lot since the first time I saw them. They were way better than the first time I saw them play, and I know last week I had said that they might not quite be what Martinsburg usually is, but look out the next 2 years because they're going to be right there. I think that Brook game, I talked to Luke Salmons last night, and he said that Brook game was good for him, and I think it was.
I figure it was.
Brook was a really good team. I wasn't surprised that was a close game,
Right.
But getting, those kind of mistakes out of the way, and still finding a way to win, I think was a really good thing. And like Tom said, Cabell Midland's at home, and they're kind of getting the treatment from me where until I see them lose, I can't pick against them. So if I had to pick, I would probably take Midland, but a really, really, really good game probably.
We both had Midland in the Super 6, starting off the playoffs. So, but these are the only two teams that have been number 1 in AAA all year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And as far as like the Gazette Mail poll and stuff.
Sure.
There was something that you just said. Shoot, what was it? About Pratt taking over. Really, I mean, Nazario has been the quote-unquote feature back and everything, and I don't know if maybe Pratt is finally in a position where he has to show that he's one of the very best players in the state, if not the best, I just think his stats have never really represented that.
Now, he's had games here and there. The game Friday, the state championship game last year, he had a crazy good game throwing the ball around, running the ball. But
one more point, and Tom can back me up here. After he got hurt, they brought in this freshman. I think his name's Clark.
Kalai Clark.
About 6 foot. It says 240, and it's probably more like 250.
Yeah, I believe he is Darian Scott's nephew or cousin. I'm not sure exactly. Some relation to Scott's though.
And I thought that gave them just a whole new dimension to that offense. I mean, it was downhill, and that guy's tough to stop when he's got ahead of steam.
I thought it also helped out just having the bigger body back there to block because. Pratt's really good, but a lot of the time, especially early in that game, Martinsburg was kind of controlling the line of scrimmage, and he was he does better on the move, but he was having to snap the ball and go. And once, Clark came in, he had a little more time to maybe scan the field, see what he wanted to do.
If the thought that I did have here was that if Midland played a game like that against Brooke, in which it really got in its own way a lot and had to really fight to pull that one out and survived it, historically, a team with what Midland has at its possession, that might signal them hitting another gear this week. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
You may have noticed through the magic of technology, we've made Rick Ryan appear all of a sudden. But anyway, we just finished up with Capital and Cabell Midland, that game on Saturday afternoon down at Cabell Midland. The other Class AAA semifinal, a game Rick, you and I will both be at on Friday. Point Pleasant hosting Wheeling Park. Kind of like we mentioned with Cabell Midland and Capital, these are two very, very good teams. They've been playing their best football of the season the last month or so. You've got maybe the two best running backs in the state. Certainly, I think the two best running backs in Class AAA, and Savion Johnson from Wheeling Park and Cody Mitchell from Point Pleasant. These teams, they seem very similar on paper, just as far, particularly on offense. We mentioned at the top of the show, everybody's kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude with Point Pleasant. Well, let's see them beat somebody good, all moaning about their schedule. What they did to Huntington last week, I don't think there's any arguing with that. This is absolutely a team worthy of the number 2 seed in the Class AAA playoffs. It's a tough trip for Wheeling Park. Wheeling and Point Pleasant, not exactly close. It's a Friday night game, which kind of bucks what you think is going to happen when there's these long trips involved.
Right.
Again, kind of like the last couple of weeks with, or at least especially last week with Wheeling Park and South Charleston. I could see this one going either way. If Wheeling Park's able to throw the ball like they were last week in that win against South Charleston, I think Point Pleasant might be in trouble.
I don't know that anybody's beating them if they do that.
Yeah, but if Point Pleasant can slow down that passing attack, I think they've got enough offense to really make this a very interesting game. Rick, like you mentioned, this is a game you're going to be at. What do you see happening here with Big Blacks hosting the Patriots on Friday?
Well, you'd look at the quarterfinal games that just came through, and against Huntington, the 2013 runner-up, South Charleston's the 2014 runner-up. They just got destroyed, each of those. I mean, Point 149-0, Wheeling Park beat South Charleston 41-0. Just total dominance on either side. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next round. Like you said, Cross Wilkinson was 12 of 12 passing, 238 yards. And he was not sacked, didn't fumble, obviously didn't throw an interception, took care of the ball. When you match that up with Savion Johnson, didn't really hurt Park, or it didn't hurt South Charleston in the first maybe 2.5, 3 quarters because they kind of kept him under control, but they had no answer for Elijah Bell. It's been a long time since I've seen South Charleston dominated like that, both on offense and defense, to get shut out. When's the last time a Donnie Mays team got shut out?
I'll have to look at it.
Wow.
I have no idea if it's
never.
ever happened. Yeah.
So, I think if Wheeling Park can play that well on offensive line and defensive line, I know Cody Mitchell has setting records, 50 touchdowns and things, but to me that just didn't give you an ounce of air either way if they're that dominant on the offensive line and defensive line.
I think Point Pleasant wins by 30.
Wow.
I'm kidding, of course.
Heard it here first.
Kidding.
40.
I think what Rick brought up, best point of all this. This game's going to get won on the offensive and defensive line. And Point Pleasant plays bully football, and if they can't bully you, they don't have the weapons, I don't think, to, throw and, well, I mean, they can throw, but you know what I mean. Athletically, I think Wheeling Park will probably have a little bit of an edge. Man, Point, if you could knock South Charleston for anything, one thing you could knock them for is being undisciplined. And I think Point Pleasant is a very disciplined football team, and if Wheeling Park comes in here thinking that they're just going to run over Point, I don't think that's going to happen either.
Right.
I would take Wheeling Park. I'm picking Wheeling Park again, like last week, because I had them in the Super Six. But I think this game
That's
might
Park,
be
not Central, right?
no
Yeah.
Wheeling
Park.
Wheeling Park.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this would be a good game, but I did want to, real quick, and I was going to ask you guys, take the scenario out of the quarterfinals. Pretend it's a regular season game, and I think that's by far the most impressive win Point Pleasant's had since they came to AAA last week, even if it wasn't in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was just, and that's what I was talking to Billy Seals via text message in the last couple of days, and he mentioned, Huntington turned the ball over a good bit, especially early, and they got behind quickly. And Billy texted me. He said, "We just played awful at Point, but they are damn good." And that's Billy, and he's not going to hem haw and make excuses.
He's seen some
He
good
feels
teams
that
this
they got
year,
beat
too.
by
Yeah,
a better
I think
team.
wasn't the quote after the game that that's the best team they've seen all year,
Yeah.
and that Mitchell was the best player they've seen all
Yeah.
year, and that's, Huntington, MSAC schedule, they're playing some of the best of the best. Not
everybody?
every
Yeah,
best
high
team,
praise.
but they also went up to. I mean, they did some traveling. They saw some good teams this year, so that's very high praise.
I kind of feel like Mitchell might have put himself in the driver's seat of the Kennedy.
I think he
Award last
absolutely.
Oh,
did.
yeah.
I think
I
so,
think
too.
he absolutely did.
Yep. All right, that'll do it for Class AAA. Just getting straight. We've got pretty much consensus. We think Cabell Midland in a close one, Wheeling Park in a close one.
I think so. That's,
That's
where I'm
about,
leaning.
that's about where I'm
Yeah.
at. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these four teams ended up
I
in the
picked
Super Six.
Capital and Park before it all started in the
Okay.
finals,
Right.
so I'm going to stick with that.
You're gonna stick with that?
Obviously,
All right.
Even though I think, with Nazario being hurt, that gives Midland a little bit more of an advantage. I know he's going to try to play,
Mm-hmm.
but whether he's going to be effective enough to do what he needs to do remains to be seen.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
There's something that just occurred to me because you've seen both Park and Capital, obviously. Match up Elijah Bell and Crunchy Basin.
Those are two
I think
receivers.
Yeah.
Crunchy is faster. I think Bell may be a little more wide receiver skilled.
Gotcha.
I think Crunchy can outrun a lot of guys, and not to say he's not a great receiver too. But I think Bell, a couple of moves he put on the South Charleston guys,
Okay.
were just he beat them by going double move and going long. He beat them by taking a hitch and going 60 yards. He just has skills across the board.
Good deal.
I know several months ago, Crunchy Bays kind of did the same thing against South Charleston. He made a couple outstanding catches in that
Yeah.
game early in the season. But we'll leave AAA there. We'll move on to Class AA. A couple of rematches in Class AA. Teams that
Oh yeah.
kind of generally don't like each other. One's the old rivalry, Bridgeport and Fairmont Senior, and on the other side, nobody likes Mingo Central. It seems like.
Tulsa don't like anybody.
Yeah, and there's that too. So
No respect.
so these are going to be, obviously semifinal games are fun. I mentioned it's my favorite round, but I think these are going to be especially good, fun matchups just as the outsider looking in. Start with the first one on the top of the bracket. Number one, Bridgeport, number one, and has been number one, rightfully so, for about two
Since
straight years.
2013,
Yeah, since they
yeah.
won the title 2 years ago. Fairmont Senior, it kind of surprised me. I thought that Kaiser was just going to bully them around a little bit, maybe lean on them a little bit. But I guess Fairmont Senior might be getting a little bit more healthy along those offensive and defensive lines, which is something that was troubling about them through the middle of the year. You thought, okay, they're still winning games,
Yeah.
but the other shoe might fall. It didn't. It went the other way. They've got weapons on offense, but seems like every week someone's got weapons on offense going up against Bridgeport, and those people have good games. Bridgeport wins by 30,
Yeah.
41-13 against Robert C. Byrd last week. And that's a good Robert C. Byrd team. I'm leaning Bridgeport. I think it's an interesting and intriguing game, but I don't think it's especially close. A couple touchdowns probably. Too much Bridgeport.
I would agree. I mean, Fairmont Senior did exactly what I thought it would do against Kaiser.
Yeah.
But I don't
I think you might have stretched your shoulder
I,
out, patting yourself
I
on the back on
kind
Twitter.
of
then.
peacocked
Yeah.
around for a while.
I think
I
they put up 58 points though. That surprised me.
Yeah, yeah,
58.
yeah. I think that got into a little bit of a shootout, and that might have, still, showed Fairmont Senior's weaknesses.
Yeah.
That Kaiser still was able to put up 42 in a loss. But, you know, we're familiar with this matchup a little bit. Ryan's familiar with it.
I've seen a couple of
You've
these
seen
games
it a couple
before, yeah.
so we're pretty familiar with this. I just think Bridgeport puts a hammer down on them. I really do. I think this is a nice run for Fairmont. Good team. I think Dom Smith, their quarterback, is a legitimate candidate for the House Award as
Yeah.
the state's best this year.
The receiver, Davison, one of the
Yeah.
best receivers in the state,
Exactly.
too.
But you know, and there's a recent recent push out of the Bridgeport community and such for Dante Bonamico as a Kennedy Award candidate. I don't know that I subscribe to that.
Yeah, I don't know that the
but
numbers are there. Not saying he's not a
No,
great player,
yeah,
but
Bridgeport wins with everybody, and I don't think there's ever going to be, you know, out of a regime like they have now, win a Kennedy. I think they're going to win another state title, and I think they're going to go right through Fairmont to do it.
I think so, too.
Yeah, you brought up a great point about Kaiser kind of exposing some weaknesses, even though they lost.
Yeah.
Because Kaiser's all ground, and if you can't, and Kaiser's a really good team. I don't want this to sound wrong, but if you can't stop Kaiser's ground attack, I can't see you stopping Bridgeport.
Right.
I agree with you. I think Bridgeport. I think Fairmont has a good team, but so did Robert C. Byrd.
Yeah.
And I think Bridgeport's just going to roll along here.
I see Bridgeport going too, and I may have this wrong, but did you say a couple of weeks ago maybe Bridgeport hadn't faced a top quality passer? Was that, maybe I'm thinking of some other team, or maybe not many.
Not many.
During the
Not
course of the
many.
year, and I'm
Say, they
wondering
would've-
if this might be a test.
This is the
for
one.
them that maybe they haven't seen a lot of this year.
yeah, this was probably the best passing attack they faced during the regular season.
Okay.
Of course, they didn't really get to face Wheeling Park in that game, so
Yeah.
What was the final of that when they played in the regular season? Bridgeport and Fairmont.
It was not close.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the exact.
I mean,
number
it was the season finale, and I can't remember what it was. You get such a flood of information as soon as the playoff starts. Stuff in week 11 even is
Yeah, it
just
kind of
like
gets
gone.
lost.
Yeah.
Well, of course, on the other side of the bracket, the other game we mentioned, number 3 Tulsa hosting number 7 Mingo Central, a rematch of their game kind of early in the season. Week 2 maybe, week 3, or first month of the season.
Yeah, it was early. I think it was week 2.
Yeah, because
It was right after they beat
'cause
Wayne.
They rolled off wins against Wayne and,
Yeah.
And Mingo Central to
Everybody
start the
went,
season. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Luke Presley might be, with all due respect to the guys at Fairmont Senior and the guys at Bridgeport, the Bonamicos and Tonkeries of the world, Luke Presley might be the best player in Class Double A
Yeah.
this year. He does a little bit of everything on offense.
You can make that argument.
Yeah, I've heard some people say, you know, he might be a legitimate defensive player of the year candidate with what he does.
saw that too this week.
With what he does on defense. The other side, Mingo Central, you know, what they did to Bluefield last week really kind of surprised me. It seemed like they kind of had their way, did what they wanted. It was a 35-22 win, so it wasn't, you know, they didn't blow them out by 3 or 4 touchdowns or
They were
anything.
by what, like 28 or
Yeah,
something
they were
like
in
that at one
control of
point.
that game
Yeah.
throughout. You know, my picks when we started all of this, my 2 Super 6 teams in Double A were Bridgeport and Mingo Central. I'm sticking with that. I think Mingo Central is going to get the win this week, and we've kind of said that throughout the season. If Tulsa and Mingo Central got to play again, I think I'd pick Mingo Central now. So I'm not going to back
Right,
off that.
we have.
I'm not going to back off that. I think it's a great game again, but I think just too many weapons for Mingo Central on both sides of the ball. They're going to win it along the offensive line.
I got the Rebels.
Yeah.
They were my Super 6 team out of that bracket, so.
Tell you what, this might be the funnest environment of any of these games.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
gonna be a blast down there.
I think I saw on Twitter like both schools have playing blackouts,
Oh,
so
yeah.
there's going to be
See,
black jerseys, black shirts everywhere on Black Friday.
thought-
Bring your Copenhagen.
you know, Tulsa, an apology. That was a really impressive performance they had last week over Hoover. This could be a good game, but I'm like you. I had Mingo Bridgeport, and I really don't see a reason to change that just yet. So
Yeah.
give me the Miners, I guess.
Just revisiting what you said about Luke Presley maybe being the best running back in Double A. You have Stevie Hammond. I mean, he's had big games
No
passing the
kidding.
ball, had a big game running the ball.
Yep.
I think he's up around like 3,500 all-purpose yards, 40-some touchdowns. You know, he's having a great season.
And missed a game.
Yeah.
But just, you know, if they make it to the finals, just the things that he's done this year, just the numbers he's put up, I think, you know, he maybe plays his way into consideration for an award.
You know who he reminds me of from his build and everything is Tyler Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does a lot
Sure.
of the same things. I mean, I think he's very
stocky.
Tyler Harris.
Right.
Throws a pretty deep ball too.
He
A bunch
does.
of the
He
warm-ups
really
out that
does.
Herbert Hoover game,
Yeah.
throwing a great deep ball. All right, so kind of split on the Mingo Central Tulsa, but we're all pretty much in agreement that we think Bridgeport's going through. So.
Yeah.
Did you pick?
Oh, well, I got Mingo Central.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So we go.
So I'm the only one taking Tulsa?
You are.
Yeah.
You are. You are. So the only outlier, you got a Tulsa and he's got a Capital. We're pretty much in agreement across the board otherwise.
Fighting Rick Maroons.
It's almost girls basketball season. All right. In Class A, last 4 teams alive. Number 1, Magnolia hosting number 4, Moorfield. And on the bottom of the bracket, number 2, East Hardy hosting number 11, St. Mary's. Derek, I want to start with you on this Magnolia Moorfield game. This is a game Magnolia has lost, it seems, 20 times in the last
It has.
21 years.
I thought
It's been rough for them. They've had some really good teams and not a whole lot of hardware to show for it. They've been number 1 all season long. They had a bit of a hiccup last week with that in that Williamstown game, but again, it was cold and nasty in New
Yeah, it was.
Martinsville on Saturday night, and maybe a little bit of that we were mentioning with Cabell Midland. Maybe being tested like that is a good thing for them. It wasn't a cakewalk through, and you get a little complacent. Oh, we're number 1. We're steamrolling over everybody, and then here comes Moorfield and Will Schoonover, and they run right over them. I'm sticking with Magnolia because that's who I've had coming out of this side of the bracket the whole time. But man, this is going to be a tough game for them, I think.
I think if I had Magnolia in Central in the Super 6, so I'm not going to break from it. But if there is a shocker, quote unquote, in the semis, this is it. I think. Rick, have you ever been down at Alumni Field during the playoffs when it gets cold? That place is only about 150
Oh, yeah.
yards from the bank of the Ohio River.
Yeah.
It gets frigid down there. All right.
Kind of like University with the winds whipping.
Yeah,
along the-
it gets nasty. And if I don't know, it's supposed to be a little bit warmer this weekend. It's supposed to rain a little bit, but not be nearly as chilly as it was. But I think I talked to Josh Sims, Magnolia's coach, last week about the propensity to go into the playoffs as a highly seeded team and come up empty-handed. We're so familiar with the Moorfield name in single ed, but they haven't been to the semis in more than 10 years. This is a big move
seems
for them.
wild.
I know, yeah.
They had an 0-10 season in that
Yep.
law.
Yep.
And they've come back from that.
2004 was the last time they were there in the semis. I think this is a slugfest. I really do. And I think Will Schoonover, this is a scenario in which Will Schoonover from Moorfield shows that he's one of those high school players that can just put everything on his back. And I would not be shocked at all if Moorfield comes out of here with a win.
You think Schoonover's maybe the front runner to be captain of the Class A All-State
Yeah,
team?
I do. I mean,
There's a lot of good players
I
in
talked
Class A,
to-
but he's the name that seems to
Yeah.
stick out week after week.
He's got more than. Wait. He's got like 2,300 rushing yards.
He's got like 2,600 and 38
Yeah.
touchdowns. I was
Yeah.
shocked to see
Yeah,
his
I mean,
numbers.
he just carries that offense. And I know Magnolia is very good against the run. And if they're suspect anywhere, it's against the pass. But I don't know. It just sets up like one of those, Wahama playing there in the semis a couple years ago and coming out with a win too.
And point out that I picked Muhammad to win that game.
I like Magnolia, even though last week scares the bejesus out of me. 14-13. I expected that to look a little
Me too.
bit better. And you're right about Will Schoonover. I think I was telling Tom the other day, that's a player that we really probably don't talk enough about on here. I mean, he's a great player, and Moorfield's a good team, and they looked pretty good against Tug Valley last week, who, as we said, is a pretty gritty team, and that wasn't close.
No.
And you're right. I kind of feel like both of the well, 5 out of the 6 semifinal games could all go either way, I think. I think Bridgeport's the one pretty sure thing. Man, this one's tough. I agree. I looked at both of these games. And I don't know.
You get a real feel, do you? No.
But I have Magnolia in there first, so I'm taking it.
I'm going to go with Magnolia. I think played a little bit better schedule during the course of the year, got tested a lot more. So I'll put a little bit of weight in that.
I won a lot of those games on the road, too, so they earned that home field. Magnolia Moorfield, a 1:30 Saturday afternoon game. The other Class A semifinal is 7:30 Saturday game. Number 2 East Hardy hosting number 11 St. Mary's. when the playoffs started, I actually picked Buffalo to come out of this side of the bracket. They played that tight game and almost came back and caught up with St. Mary's. 2-point conversion short of that, but St. Mary's has been rolling since then. They won that tight game, just blew through South Harrison last week, 37-0 on the road. The other side of that, East Hardy is the number 2 seed. They've been tested tough, both of these games. They had to come back to beat Bishop Donahue in the first round.
Yeah.
Tight game. They won 16-14 at home against a Wheeling Central team that I think everybody but me on the panel picked to go to the Super 6 out of this bracket. So that's a good win, but it's a tight game. It just seems like maybe all the momentum is with St. Mary's right now going into this one, and I would kind of lean that way for them to make a return trip to the Super 6 and go beating East Hardy. But again, like you said, I think other than that Bridgeport game, about all of these semifinal games, you could maybe flip a coin and not feel too bad about what you came out with. I mean, I'll just open it up to you guys because I really don't know what else to say. I've seen St. Mary's once, and it's a good team, but man, I did not see that 37-0 coming last week against South Harrison.
Right. I think it's East Hardy's had Bishop Donahue, Wheeling Central, and now a team probably half the state thinks is a parochial school. So, I saw some of the highlights of the Central game. Corey McDonald at quarterback for them is, I'm going to say probably a lock for the All-State slot quarterback in single A. Closing in on, I think, more than 2,000 yards passing, well over 1,000 yards rushing. He just gets it done. And I think I picked Central to make the Super 6, as I said. I think this is East Hardy's year to go. I really do.
You said you didn't see 37-0 coming. I didn't see 16-14.
No.
I know it was I think it was like a field goal with under a minute to
It
go.
was,
Right?
yep.
And I'm making my inaugural voyage to Baker this weekend. I like this St. Mary's team all year. I really did. I know they lost the one to Magnolia and kind of the head scratcher against South Harrison. But all along, I kind of thought they were probably a better team than South Harrison. That kind of proved out last week. This is the one game this week I have no idea. I'll say I'll pick East Hardy because I'm going to hang out up there.
like to maybe be able to find a room and a bite to eat Saturday night.
I haven't seen either of these teams, and that is literally the only reason to try to save my face when I'm walking around in Baker. So I'll pick East Hardy.
I made the mistake several years ago of calling them the Bobcats in the paper.
Oh, no.
And I just have begun to live it down, and I just bring it up again. So, see you in another 5 years.
Yeah, probably.
Cougars.
I had, like Derek, I had Central coming out of this side of the bracket. So, for East Hardy to win that game last week, opened my eyes a little bit. I think I'll be taking them in this game. But just to say that they won that game on a field goal, I know that kid had missed a late field goal maybe a quarter before that.
Oh.
So to win in that fashion shows a lot about you.
All right, one thing we did last week, kind of like we're going to do it again. We go around and we point out one thing we got right and one thing we got wrong on last week's show. And I know I got a lot of things wrong. Maybe just the score definitely I got wrong, but I don't think I was really that wrong about a lot of this stuff. Rick, we'll start with you. What do you got this week?
I think I got right. Picked a St. Mary's number 11 seed to beat South Harrison. And I think some of us were thinking along those lines. But 37-0. I wasn't expecting that. But anytime you pick an 11 seed, you got to doff your cap a little bit. But wrong. Again, I got Hoover wrong. I said last week I had been sort of downplaying Hoover in all the 50-50 games this year, and then thought I'd finally jump on the bandwagon for last week's game at Tulsa, and the bandwagon fell over, and they lost 54-0. So that also, so I was right by a lot and wrong by a lot.
Yeah. I missed Hoover too, and I seem to do that every week as well. Of course, the one that Derek's waiting for me to say is I missed Kaiser. That was I thought they were a pretty clear top tier Class AA team, having seen them play, and offensively it was there. Like you pointed out correctly, Fairmont's passing game really seemed to be the difference in that game. One thing I got right. Good grief, did I get anything right?
Did you take Huntington or Point Pleasant?
I took Point Pleasant. I can
There
do
you
that.
go.
You just took my
I
right,
also
man.
took St. Mary's too, but Rick kind of beat me to the punch there. I picked Bingo Central too. That was pretty good, so it was good. Got a few things right.
Yeah, a couple things like that I got right. Capital
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be a good game. Capital was going to come out. Yeah, I definitely whiffed on Wheeling Park and Point Pleasant. I had Huntington and South Charleston winning, but man, I did not know just how bad those were going to be. I mean, I thought I wouldn't have been shocked at all if you had told me, Wheeling Park and Point Pleasant won those games, but a combined 90-0, that's rough. It's a rough week.
I was wrong with Brooke for the second week in a row.
That's right.
You know,
You got a little grief about that.
a little
didn't you?
bit, yeah.
You were
But
good for 3 quarters.
Yeah, I was good for 3 quarters, and as a matter of fact, it was pretty quiet for 3 quarters. As a matter of fact, 9-7, Midland going into the fourth. They wear down Brooke and pull away to a 30-7 win. I think I was right that Brooke matched or bettered the physicality of any team that Midland had played this year. But that's what Midland does. They wear people down. So I was wrong about that, and I slept like a baby Saturday night. It was probably my best night of sleep in the last week. What I was right about, oh gosh. Of course, the Fairmont Senior thing, but I think that might have been more. I might have been more right about that than I've been about anything all year. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, I bragged about that a little bit. I'm sorry.
I'd like to add that I was also right about picking Wheeling Park.
Yeah.
Last week.
You were.
Throw that out there.
All right, the last thing we'll do, we talked a little bit about needing to get to the semifinals really to legitimize a Kennedy candidacy. And it's not required, but time has shown it really, really, really helps if your team is playing this weekend. We mentioned that we thought maybe Cody Mitchell firmly established himself as the front runner for this award last week. Derek, you wrote a column the other day I thought was pretty interesting. You looked at all of the awards. Just real quick, if you could kind of touch on that for us a little bit, some of the guys you think maybe are sticking out or possibly heading towards awards this season. Because, if you didn't read the column or you haven't paid attention to everything going on around the state, a lot of those names may have been new to you.
Sure. We had all the 6 new awards that we came in with last year, the position-specific awards, and I counted down who I thought the All-State Committee who selects these awards would come out with, not who I was going to push for, not whatever. And actually, I came up with a couple single A winners. I think Dylan Lucas from Buffalo, who has more than 700 return yards this year, to go with his, 1,700 rushing yards?
Close to 2,000.
Was their second leading receiver as well.
Right.
Those are, dare I say it, I know it's single A, but those are Ryan Switzer numbers, man.
Yeah. We mentioned, the East Hardy quarterback and Will Schoonover. If there's a third right there as maybe the best players in Class A this year, I think Dylan Lucas has to be in consideration.
Definitely. So I named him as, who I expect is going to win the, oh my God.
Is it the
Fulton Walker Award?
Yeah.
Tired, who goes to the best special teams player. I think the best DB is thanks to a move by Moorfield coach Josh C. and moving Schoonover to strong safety this year. I think he is hands down the best defensive player in single. I just said yesterday that no one person can say nobody's the best hands down at anything. Change that. I think that he's pretty well accepted as the best defensive player in single A, and he had a better year not necessarily a better statistical year on offense than he's had. I think he's going to get a strong push to win that Carl Lee Award as the best DB in the state. Chuck Howley Award at linebacker were chock full of linebackers.
Oh, it's a great year for linebackers.
Oh yeah. Ryan Gatrell at Huntington, who we've known about, and I pointed this out. The media has been aware of Ryan Gatrell in a way that's similar to Schoonover in the last year. He's been on the radar a while, and he's performed for a while.
Reminiscent of Mason Hunt from Wayne a
Yeah,
couple years ago.
much similar to that too. Unfortunately for Mason, he kind of had a down year his senior year. So for him. We got Devin Adkins at Capital. We got the Chris Camp kid at Midland. There's linebackers.
Luke Presley from
Yeah,
Tulsa.
Luke Presley from Tulsa. A bunch of them, but I think that's going to go to Gatrell. We don't have. We'll get to the Hunt in a minute. The wide receiver award, which I think is the single fullest this year. And that's why I asked you about Elijah Bell and Crunchy Bays earlier. We have last year's winner, Christian Johnson from Jefferson, still
Right.
who put up really good numbers. It's not like last year, but Thomas Cole at Brook is a really good receiver. He's committed to Akron. I mean, there's a D1 wide receiver in this mix, folks. It's not just Elijah Bell from the Northern Panhandle. Cole's pretty good.
Right, Johnson's getting a lot of D1
Yeah.
attention.
Yep.
Also, I think
There's
maybe Navy looking at him.
Yeah. Navy got a kid from Jefferson, and I think they're still looking at Christian too. Nick Davison from Fairmont Senior. There's a bunch of them, and
And of course,
Drew Bowen.
Drew Bowen
Drew
from
Bowen, yeah,
GW,
really.
Crunchy Bay, as you mentioned, Elijah Bell.
yeah, and that's
Receivers
why I
stacked
asked,
this year.
because I think coming into the semis, I don't think that there's a clear feel for it. I think Crunchy Bays and Elijah Bell are going to be maybe fighting that out to the end. Running back, I think Cody Mitchell, because he's just
Those numbers are silly.
prolific.
Those numbers
50
are
touchdowns
silly.
get your
Yeah.
attention.
Quarterback is one that, aside from, we've got a difficult choice to make in wide receiver. We've got one in quarterback too, and it's kind of the opposite reason. It's because there's really not one in AAA, and we've talked about this at the beginning of the year. There's not one in AAA that has really gone out and, blown people away.
Slam dunk.
Yeah,
Statistics.
I mean, Kentry Greer from South Charleston won it last year, but I
Yeah.
think that was he had similar numbers, touchdowns and yardage as what Cody Mitchell's been putting up on
You're right,
as a
right.
running back this year.
Right.
Kentry Greer's had a good year this year, but those receivers hurt
Yeah.
like they were for South Charleston. That kind of just took him out of the mix. They turned into a running team at some point.
So I think Dom Smith from Fairmont Senior is in that mix. I think Pratt is in the mix. And
Kid
some
from
others.
East Hardy. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I mentioned Corey McDonald as well. The big three, the
Stevie
older
Hammond.
three. Stevie Hammond, yeah. The Hunt Award goes to the best lineman, and the Huff Award to the best defensive player. I've got, for the first time in history, those being won by the same person, and that's Reese Donahue at Cabell Midland. That guy is a freaking animal at defensive end. Quite possibly the best I've ever covered at the high school level at that position. And I think he's a slam dunk for the Hunt, and I think that you can really make a case, especially if Midland has us into the Super Six like most of us expect, that he's the best defensive player in the state too. The Kennedy finally, I voted already. I did, and a lot of people are going to say, well, you should wait till the very last minute. And there's times I do, and there's times I don't. And this year was the time I didn't. And I voted Mitchell number 1. I put Reese Donahue at number 2.
I was going to ask about that.
I did.
Thought, yeah.
Yeah.
thought
I
that was
really
coming.
did. And I put Pratt at number 3. So that's what I did.
I guess I think that just about does it for us. Of course, you can find everything we write and produce and all the content we create for high school football online at wvhuddle.com. You can follow us on Twitter at wvhuddle. We're on Facebook at wvhuddle. All of our non-high school football sports coverage, WVU, Marshall, other prep sports that aren't high school football, and Mountain East Conference, all of that at Gazette Mail, wvgazettemail.com/sports. I almost forgot it. On Twitter at Gazmail Sports. Are you waving to somebody
Yeah.
outside just now?
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yep. Yep. And of course, this was one of the last one of these for high school football, at least, that we'll be doing this season. We're recording at Adelphia Sports Bar and Grill in downtown Charleston, 218 Capitol Street. They've been great hosts all year.
Awesome this year.
They've been, if you've got catering or anything you need done, you can give them a call, 304-343-5551. They're going to be open at 3 o'clock Thanksgiving afternoon and also on Christmas. So if you're looking to get away from the family and come have something to eat after dinner and watch some ball games,
the family.
they'll have them all, or bring the family too. But I'm just speaking from personal experience. I think that about does it, guys. Just real quick, where's everybody going this weekend? What game are you going to do?
I'm going home. I'm going to go see Magnolia and Moorfield.
All right. Friday night, I'm slipping down to the Point Pleasant Wheeling Park game. Rick, I think you're going to be at that
Yeah, I'm
game
going to
too.
be at the Point Pleasant game Friday, and then the Capital Midland game on Saturday.
And I'm ultimate road warrior
Yes.
role. Going to Bridgeport Friday night and Baker Saturday night, and
Oh, wow.
trying to hightail it back. So,
All
that'll be
right.
fun.
Godspeed, Ryan Pratt.
Like I said, you can follow us at WV Huddle. We're covering all 6 semifinal
Yep.
games. I think we've done this.
We are.
We're aimed to do that the last couple of years, really, since we've got this thing going. It's been one of the great things about the Huddle project. The
It's
last
a feather
few
in my
years.
cap
Yeah.
of it. I love the fact that we are actually able to, staff, not farm out, but staff, all 6 prep football semifinals is phenomenal to me.
All right, so look for all of that, and we'll be back next week to get you set for the Super 6 and tell you all you need to know if you're going to head up to Wheeling, watch the state championship games in a couple weeks. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you then.
Drive safe, everybody.